Welcome to Rider Nation Station, presented by American Manufacturing Solutions, your total logistics partner, investing in Rider Nation Station and St. Mary's, Ohio, and to our other fine sponsors.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Doug Frye Show on Rider Nation Station. I'm your host, Joe Hurlburt, and over the course of the next 10 weeks, we'll be meeting weekly with the head coach of the St. Mary's Rough Riders, Doug Frye. And the season opens this Friday on the road, and you got a lot on the road to start the season. But, Doug, it's good to be back with you again.
Well, Joe, first of all, I want to welcome you back. We had many, many years together, and I still listen to those old games with Big Ralph occasionally, and it's just great to have you back. And we got Doug Spencer behind the camera there, so I don't know, we're bringing all the old troops back together here, so hopefully that's a good thing.
Absolutely. What goes around comes around.
Right.
Well, let's talk briefly, Doug. A very successful year last year. First regional championship in quite a few years. The third straight Western Buckeye League win. You made a state semifinal appearance against Wyoming. Recap last season. It had to be a fun year.
It was an exciting year, a very fun year, and it was a great group of seniors. And, you know, probably the thing that jumps at me the most, and everybody will talk about the Perrys of the world and the Dunlaps of the world, and they were great football players and did a tremendous job. But the kids that came on last year that had not contributed for us in the past, and not only did they help us immensely, but I just felt so good about what they did and the way they finished their careers. The Ballwigs, the Wheat Holders, the Taylors were kids that had never seen the field for us, had played occasional JV football, and there's Carter Ballwig set an all-time interception record in the history of school. Wheat Holder and Taylor being two great defensive tackles for us and playing extremely well. And they did that because they came from families that supported them. They worked extremely hard, and they were extremely coachable. We live in a day and age where maybe coachability isn't quite what it used to be, and those kids were coachable, and they just absorbed everything that we preached to them. So that was gratifying, along with many other kids that contributed and had a great year. But our seniors just did a tremendous job, and I feel so good about that group, and my memories are very positive of that group.
You talked about family support. Rough Rider football over the years has always had the support of the community. But now you've got groups involved like the Cowbell Mafia and things like that. And you couldn't ask for better support from a community.
Fantastic support. And I tell our high school kids don't always realize it because that's the only place they've ever been. And each year I tell our kids, there's nothing like this, guys. I mean, there is absolutely. I've been 7 different schools throughout my career, and you are living in a unique experience, from the Cowbell Mafia to our band, to our cheerleaders, to our school environment, to our support groups, from the Rider Rooters to the football parents to the Touchdown Club. We just have such a unique environment. I mean, there was almost 200 kids in our flag football program. We had 130 kids in our little kids camp. Our kids go into the school. I know one of my grandchildren asked, what football guys are coming to my classroom this year? And that's all he talked about. So the camaraderie, the relationships, St. Mary's is a unique place.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to briefly touch on the support system for Coach Frye. We're going to touch base and talk about his coaching staff when we come back right after this. Vogel's Bake Shop, making thousands of fresh donuts daily, open 7 days a week with stores in St. Mary's, Salina, and Walpock. Also now found in Wagner's IGA in New Bremen, Minster, and Fort Laramie. Welcome back to the Doug Frye Show on Rider Nation Station. I'm Joe Hurlburt, along with the Rough Rider head coach, Doug Frye. Coach, let's talk a little bit about your coaching staff. And, you surround yourself with good people. And, back in the day, when Skip coached, I remember Jim Elshire was at Walpock. Jim Daly was at Elite at the time. And it always seemed that they had staffs that would stick with them for 15, 20 years. And so, is that still the norm, or?
Well, I would say it should be the norm, but it's not the norm anymore. I just think it's changed a lot through the years. Maybe the demands are a little more from off-season programs now, and you just don't see that very often. First of all, you don't see people like me still sitting in this chair at this age anymore. Very often you do in the MAC a little bit more. But in a lot of these schools that are D4 or up, it's pretty unique. Guys usually are leaving a little bit earlier, and a big part of that reason is the demands of the off-season program and the inability to put a staff together and keep a staff together. And frankly, I'm sitting here, and I wouldn't be sitting here without the coaching staff that I have. And I told those guys, when you guys decide that you want to quit doing this, is the day that I'm going to be going, because those guys are, first of all other than Steve Yale, who works outside of education, all are guys that either have played for me or coached for me in the past.
Really?
And every single one of them. And they're teachers in our building, too, which I think is huge. They have a relationship with the kids. They see the kids on a regular basis. They're able to do a lot of the daily work. And my schedule isn't full-time at the school anymore, so I'm not able to see all the kids all the time. Sure. So it's a great staff, and I can individually highlight those guys if you want, but I wouldn't be here without that group.
Well, if you would, go ahead and talk about your defense and offensive staff.
It's funny sometimes in this business how you can go from being not so good to good real quick by what organization or what group you're in. And the first guy I'm going to talk about is Nick Yale, our defensive coordinator. Nick was part of the previous staffs, and the defense was giving up a lot of points. And all of a sudden, when we're in here and we're working together, our defense has been fantastic. Nick played for me, of course, in the 2000s and back on the 04 team that played in the state championship. So he leads our defense, a teacher in our building. His staff has Shane Patterson on it, also an educator. And Shane was my defensive coordinator at Wapakoneta. So there's 2 D coordinators on that group. Mike Reams was the first guy I hired when I came back here. I said, I have to have Mike back on the staff. He's our Fellowship of Christian Athletes leader. Mike's title is solely player personnel. Mike does not have a position. He takes care of our kids, all the needs that need to be done, the daily things that happen throughout the school day. But when he does help, he's on our defensive staff. And Tom Nouse, who has a unique teaching position from a standpoint of being in the middle school and high school. Tom's a kindergarten teacher. And so he's at the kindergarten, and we have some interesting stories that we talk about there. And he takes a more active role in our little kids camp by all means. Sure. And so he's there. And then, of course, our 2 freshman coaches before I moved to the offense are Scott Slosser, who's an educator in our building, and the only lone non-educator is Steve Yale. And on our coaching staff, those are our 2 freshman coaches. Steve works the night shift at Airstream. You talk about a commitment. We don't pay him a nickel. Coaching costs him a couple $100 every year to get all the certifications and the paperwork. And so Steve will work all night and come in for 2-a-days all day and get a couple hours of sleep and go back to work at Airstream. So our offensive staff, Bo and Kobe Frye. Bo was with me at Wapak too, and Kevin Jacobs are all educators in our school system. So I'm blessed with a very talented staff. Dave Ring, our ex-soccer coach, is our kicking coach, and Dave, I tell him I keep him around because he's the only guy older than me on the staff, and so I need to feel a little younger at least, and we joke about that, but Dave does a tremendous job for us. And then I, of course, don't want to neglect our junior high coaches. Dave Brewer leads the group down there, and Dave was with me the first time, and Cody Martin, and amongst some other guys down there. Cody was with me at Wapak also, so a lot of these guys have been with me for 10 years now.
Absolutely. That's a great staff, and again, the tenure that they have with you, you get to know them, and and they know your philosophies, you know their philosophies, and I think it's just a great mesh.
It is a tremendous mesh, and that staff and the way we work together is very, very unique in today's times. And I think it's really attributed to the fact that we have about 90 kids out, and I think it'd probably be down in the 55 or 60. At the most, if it wasn't for the relationship that these guys build with the kids in the hallways.
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have more on the Doug Frye Show on Rider Nation Station right after this. Vogel's Bake Shop, making thousands of fresh donuts daily, open 7 days a week with stores in St. Mary's, Salina, and Walpock. Also now found in Wagner's IGA in New Bremen, Minster, and Fort Laramie. Coach, now we enter into the 2019 season, and let's kind of preview a little bit your offense and defensive teams. Let's first of all, let's go to your offense. Got some key personnel back in the backfield, Ty Slosser and Ty Howe. Had tremendous seasons last year. They're now seniors, both good leaders on and off the field. So let's talk about your offense a bit.
Let me go backwards just a little bit first, and I'll go back there. Just give me 30 seconds to go backwards. I really think going into year 6, it is a lot tougher job for myself and our staff now than when we walk through the door. I thought that was easy, to clean up the 21-game losing streak, to great enthusiasm, to win football games. But to maintain success is extremely difficult anywhere you're at. And so I've explained this to our kids, and I'm hoping that we learn it from my lips and not from experience at that point. So we're working hard to maintain our success at this juncture. And I also want to say that before I talk about our offensive guys in the backfield, because those are 2 great kids, that I'm real pleased to have 29 freshmen on our roster. Us and Wapakoneta are the only 2 schools that have maintained a freshman schedule this year. We brought 2 of those kids up to the varsity, and we're going to play freshman football all the way out through. So our kids are going to have an opportunity each week of the 89, 90 kids. Virtually every one of them is going to see significant action each week, which will maintain the program down the road. It starts in our backfield. Ty Howe, Ty Slosser, our kids that were starters for us a year ago, but also saw action as sophomores. So they're kids that have been around and been through the game, so we're going to bank on those guys being players.
And how about your other key positions, quarterback, wide receivers, and your offensive line? Of course, Mitch Seward was a first-team All-League center last year. You're going to have to fill him. But here again, you touched base on it when we started. Kids that didn't see a lot of action last year as juniors now may be able to move in as seniors and really contribute a lot for this ball club this year.
Absolutely. We lose 7 starters on both sides of the ball, so it's a year where we have a number of kids to replace, and I see the Western Buckeye League being at a real upswing this year. Shawnee has 22 seniors with Coach Cooper there amongst the traditional powers in the league. Kenton, one that was in the National Powerade tournament, had a quarterback move in from Missouri, so it's on the upswing. So we break in a brand new quarterback, and this is the only young man that wasn't in a position where we gained continuity, and we had to move him from running back, and that's Dylan Troglin, who's the fastest kid that we have on the football team. And so we're trying to get him acclimated to the quarterback position. And then a number of other running backs, Ethan Wedding stepping up from the JV team, and we have about 6 backs that we're going to rotate in and out.
Okay. What about your defense? Of course, it's got to be anchored. It's going to be anchored by your defensive lineman and a D1 look. A lot of D1 schools are looking at him, Blake Knorr.
Yes, Blake is back on the D-line. He'll also play tight end for us. So he'd be the guy that would jump at you on the D-line. He'll also play, like I said, on the offensive line. We really believe that our O-line and our D-line are the strengths of our football team. At Garden Center, Riley Swigert on the O-line along with Logan Allen. We have a sophomore and Stosh Patterson, but the 2 tackles we have on offense and Brian Ward and Jace Norton are the 2 keys that we think are keys to the football season, those 2 young men. And the rest of the D-line and Trey Fisher. I think Trey is filled out a lot and will have a great year for us, along with Trace Mabry on the D-line. And then we have a new kid that has come in from Knoxville, Foltz, that has come in from Knoxville, and he threw the shot and disc 48, 49 feet in the spring, so we're hoping that he'll come on as the season goes on. So we think there's some kids on those lines that are going to help us a lot.
Absolutely. And the big change that has taken place this year for the Rough Riders is you're moving from the friendly confines of Skip Bachman Stadium, and you're moving to the new facility out at the high school, and so you're going from grass to turf. Any big adjustments with that?
From the turf standpoint, no, because we've been practicing out here for, this will be the 6th year that we practice, and we mixed our practices between the turf and the grass anyway. And it really is a fantastic environment for us to prepare because within 50 yards we have 2 grass fields and a turf field right there. And that is really nice. And we really, really like the environment of Skip Bachman and the tradition of Skip Bachman Stadium, and the name, obviously, named after Coach Bachman. And of course, I, as a father and a coach, experienced the environment. But it was time to make a decision to move on, and I really appreciate everything our administration has done in our community. We've done all the work with donated money, and that is just fantastic. And it's going to be a state-of-the-art facility that's going to be unique and going to be great. So we look forward to playing there.
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about this week's opponent, the Sidney Yellow Jackets, as the 2019 season kicks off. We'll do that and more when we come back right after this. Vogel's Bake Shop, making thousands of fresh donuts daily, open 7 days a week with stores in St. Mary's, Salina, and Walpock. Also now found in Wagner's IGA in New Bremen, Minster, and Fort Laramie. Welcome back to the Doug Frye Show on Rider Nation Station. I'm your host, Joe Hurlburt, along with head coach Doug Frye, and the 2019 season is upon us. And so we're on the road, and on the road again. So you're going to be on the road for quite a while before we come home. Sidney is your opponent this Friday. Tell us a little bit about the Jackets.
First of all, they're coached by Adam Dunges, and Adam played for me here, and I helped prep him when he's getting ready for the interviews, and he came over to practices at Walpock, and we helped him out a lot. Now, obviously, we don't talk quite that much anymore since we're the opening game opponent, but we have some off-season discussions and have a great relationship. So I'm proud of what Adam has done with the program. He's done a fantastic job, and I think what jumps at you every year with Sidney is their athleticism. They've got some kids that just can move, and I mean, they're going to make big plays. They can get in the end zone quick, so you're going to have to run to the ball and tackle extremely well on the defensive side of the ball. And Adam's done a great job of getting the kids in the weight room and building the program. I believe it's the 7th year there now, and so that athleticism is always going to be a threat. And we go to Sidney. You're talking about being on the road again. I think there's a country song like that. We probably should make that our theme. Maybe I should start playing that in the locker room here for a while, because we went to Bell Fountain, so it's a solid month that we're going to be going, which helped out with the stadium issue. We're getting everything done in that regard, but it's quite a challenging schedule. Of all the years, as I talked about our kids being used to the success, but you go from Sidney to Walpock to OG. We got our work cut out for us early.
Absolutely. When you talk about Sidney, the name that jumps out to me is Quamar Billy Brown. Runs a legitimate 4.4. So you're absolutely right. Not only do they have great athleticism, but they also got some speed.
Yeah, he's got athleticism, and he's not the only one. And but obviously he's the fastest of the group, and we're going to have to do a great job playing team defense, and we're going to have to do a great job on the offensive side of the ball. And if you look at it, it's the same. If you look at it from a lot of the fans that have watched Rough Rider football for years, the matchup with Kenton, where we have to control some time and clock and do well on special teams and make sure that we're taking care of not allowing the big play defensively, is going to be the key.
Well, and also we'd be remiss if we don't talk about Sidney is now next year will move to another league, and so that's going to leave an opening for the Rough Riders next year. Tell us a little bit about that process, and is there anybody on the horizon that may be able to fill their spot?
Well, first of all, we're disappointed that we lose that rivalry. It's been a long-standing rivalry with great crowds, and we have liked to have kept that. And the great thing about playing us and playing St. Mary's is the crowd that follows and the gates that follow. So Mr. Holman, Jim Holman, our athletic director, is working on that, and I think we're getting closer, but nothing official yet.
Okay. Final thoughts for this program, Doug, as we wrap things up. We wish you the best on Friday night against the Sidney Yellow Jackets, and it's probably you get a chance to hit somebody other than your own people. And so I know you had 2 scrimmages against Finley and Bell Fountain, but there's nothing like playing Friday night under the lights. There's nothing like high school football.
There is nothing like it, and every year you try to communicate that as an adult to your kids, and sometimes they get it, and sometimes they get it after they graduate, I guess. But we're excited about it. I know our community is excited about it, and I think it'll be a great ball game, and weather's supposed to be great, and the last time we play Sidney.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to wrap it up here on this edition of the Doug Frye Show on Rider Nation Station. Don't forget the Rules of the Game program is coming up immediately following this broadcast. So, again, we wish you the best of luck against Sidney on Friday night, and until next week, we'll see you then.
This episode of Rider Nation Station has been sponsored by American Manufacturing Solutions, your total logistic partner, investing in the St. Mary's community.
Vogel's Bake Shop, making thousands of fresh donuts daily, open 7 days a week with stores in St. Mary's, Salina, and Walpolk. Also now found in Wagner's IGA in New Bremen, Minster, and Fort Laramie.